A Survivor podcast. We are so excited to be back with the latest castaway voted out and the queen of Jury Villa. We've got Aileen on the podcast. Aileen, how are you doing today?
Oh, Alex, thank you so much for having me. I am doing so well. Honestly, I had a great time watching my exit with my friends, and I just feel all the love from everyone, and I couldn't be any more happier.
Good, good. I'm so glad to hear that. Well, you were one of my favorites this season. I could see a path to the end for you. I was so excited for you. And I think what I appreciated most was your strategic gameplay this season. So, first question for you, would love to hear what was your strategy before you started the game? And then how did it evolve or did it evolve? When did it evolve? Things like that.
Yeah, 100%. So going into the game, I knew that I didn't want to be this overt leader. I wanted to be a discreet leader, but I wanted to identify a couple of shields so that my threat level would be lowered, and that was Ferris and Kirby. I also knew that I didn't, and not many people think of the strategy, but I didn't want to be perceived as someone's number two or in a power couple, because usually if you can't take out the number one, you go for the number two. And I was very happy being three or four. And a lot of people in the game were like, "Aren't you worried that you're at the bottom?" No, I'm not, because then I'm not the second in the firing line. And my strategy was also to be a really social butterfly, which I was. But coming into the game, there were so many big personalities on the Rebels tribe that were trying to overpower each other. So I had to adapt and kind of be a little more quiet and observant. And I remember kind of removing myself from the larger group when we were building the shelter just to observe everyone. And I remember Raymond, sweet Raymond, coming up to me and being like, "Aileen, you're isolating yourself." And I was like, coming from Raymond. And I was like, "Raymond, don't worry. I'm doing this on purpose and I want to observe everyone." So, and look, I felt like at the early Rebel days, I was killing it. I described myself as an onion with many layers. Scott and I built this day one relationship because we found out that we loved Broadway shows. And then Garrick, Scott, and I were actually supposed to be our ride or die trio, but you see later on Scott actually drifting more towards Kirby and Ree. So I knew that one had to be let go. And then on night two, Ferris, Raymond, and I had these lovely chats under the stars while the Cuddle crew were taking up most of the space in the shelter by the fire. And so that was my solid alliance, plus Garrick. And then Kirby and I, we barely spoke a few words at the beginning, but I could tell that we both had this mutual respect, that we were strong women who were very strategic. And so we were working with each other for a couple of votes. But I think when she decided to turn on Ferris, she hadn't realized that she just assumed that I was working with her, Ree, and Scott, never asked me to be in that alliance. And basically, I had pledged my allegiance to Raymond and Ferris and Garrick first. So that's where the divide started happening.
Wow. But no, that's so good to know, and especially to hear that group of you, Ferris and Raymond, kind of started night two. I mean, that is incredibly
Yeah, very
impressive.
early on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was playing double agent because I was trying to look, I was always with them, but I
Mhm.
know that it's the most powerful thing in the game is to have information, right? So I would
Mhm.
constantly even go to the Cuddle Club, speak to them, speak to Kirby and stuff to get all the information, to the point where my very own alliance started questioning my allegiance. And I had to tell them multiple times, "Guys, I'm with you. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm playing such a good game, but I'm trying to help our alliance."
Exactly. No, I love that. So I'm curious, what made you ultimately choose to kind of let that core alliance be Ferris, Raymond, Garrick, rather than working with Kirby, Rihanna, Scott, or not going over with Scott to work with them?
Well, the funny thing is that even though Scott and I had decided to go our separate ways, we always had this mutual respect and bond that we would always try and keep each other's names out of the vote. And you can see in the Titans that worked because we were working in separate alliances. But I think when Garrick went home, my name was actually pitched by, of course, Kirby first. And Scott immediately shut that down. And I knew that he had my back, and I was never going to let anyone write down Scott's name as well. But I think the one thing that maybe drove the wedge was I didn't really strategize with Rihanna from the very beginning, and we weren't really the closest. And to see that she was Kirby's right hand woman, I don't know where I would have fit in that alliance. Where with Raymond, Garrick, and Ferris, it was a very open dialogue to the point where I didn't even feel it was necessary for me to be in every single conversation they had. And I think a lot of people perceive that as Eileen being on the outs or being in the middle. But if you trust your alliance, or if you feel like your alliance trusts yourself, why do you need to be there and stand and eavesdrop in everything when they're just going to tell me the information anyway?
That makes complete sense and could even put a larger target on your back if you're not
100%.
not
Yeah.
looking out. Well, Eileen, you mentioned a sense of, kind of observing and stepping back, and that was something I noticed in your game as well, kind of having this keen sense of awareness about what was happening. And we got a few really fun moments on the edit, as well as you're kind of having these moments of a few of my favorites were, looking at the camera when you were strategizing with Kelly. I mean,
Breaking
greatest.
that fourth wall.
It was incredible. I went on record to say it was the greatest 1 second of Survivor of any franchise. I loved it so much. But then also, that Eden vote at Tribal Council when Ferris is telling Alex, I think the vote, you're blocking Alex's face. So they can't hear what's going on or even read those lips. So how did you develop that sense of like, I need to be very aware of what's going on for my lines?
Well, the thing is, if you're not observing everyone else and you're in your own bubble, how are you gonna know what everybody else is thinking? Obviously, they're not gonna tell you because they're working against you. So the best way, and what I did every single tribal council was, how Kelly said she was the meerkat? No, I was the meerkat, literally sitting up like this, looking around every single time someone was like speaking, trying to look at their facial expressions and stuff. And so I felt like I really did a great job at that. And with the Titans turning, well, not turning, but siding with Kirby, Scott, and Kelly when they voted out Garrick, I had a straight up conversation with Valeria and Charles, and I could tell that they were lying to me. So that was the first indication of they're not with us. And I really tried to convince Ferris and Garrick, but unfortunately they didn't listen. Woohoo. Woohoo.
I know. I know. I think it was you and Garrick's, saying play the idol, play the idol. I know I was at home saying play the idol. Just
Well, the
couldn't
other
happen.
indication, if we want to talk about my observation skills, is I still didn't know it was Garrick. Scott had quickly walked by and said, "Well, it's not you," and I trusted that because I trusted Scott. And I was like, "Well, I don't know if it's Ferris, Garrick, or Raymond. Let's just see how Tribal Council goes." And aside from Garrick having his spidey senses that it was him, when everybody went up to the voting booth, I actually watched the motion of their elbows, and I was like, okay, it's not Ferris because it wasn't that short, and it wasn't Raymond because it didn't end with a D. It was Garrick. And that's the instance when I knew it was Garrick. And I completely understand why Ferris was uncomfortable to play the idol, because I had given literally him a few seconds to make that call. But ultimately, I credit my observation skills for picking that up very last minute.
It's fantastic. So cool to hear. Well, Eileen, one of the biggest episodes we saw this season was that twist at Tribal Council where there was the challenge, and then you, Ferris, and Kirby were the only ones safe and the only ones who had a vote.
Wild. Those
Pretty
three,
amazing.
wild.
Pretty amazing. And I said that was the best outcome, most intriguing outcome that we could see. With that, I mean, one, I'd love to hear what was your experience there? What were you feeling when you hit that last sandbag, knowing you're safe and knowing you have a vote?
Let's backtrack a little bit and let's see how I was feeling at the tribal before the challenge was announced. And I was humiliated because I had suddenly, I've been trying to work and play all angles, convincing the Titans, oh, I was potentially still going to work with them. And I was. But at that moment, I decided, look, if we're going into merge without the rebel numbers, we'd be screwed. So then I pitched the rebel strong thing, and Charles went at it at me. And there's so much that's not shown. And I was just like, breathe, Eileen, breathe, 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 because I felt so humiliated. And then when that twist was announced, and literally it was only seconds before the challenge started, I got my composure together, and something in my brain was just laser focused. And look, I'm very average at beer pong and cornhole. I'm not usually the winner, but I credit that to my win as well, and just being able to breathe through. My dad's actually a Buddhist, so he's taught me from a very young age about breathing patterns and meditation. So thank you, Dad, because I think that actually helped me for that challenge and the next challenge as well.
Hmm. That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, I'm curious too, with that challenge, I've seen a lot of different perspectives, across fans online. Even Caleb and I on our podcast had two very different perspectives when you and Ferris decided to split the vote between Charles and Winna. How did you develop that strategy in the moment of, hey, let's just split the vote and revote again in case there's an idol? I was shocked. I hadn't even conceived that idea. And so when it happened, I was blown away. Tell me about that.
So I give credit for Ferris for coming up with the split vote because it was definitely the smart move. And at that time, all I was thinking was it needs to be Charles because you don't see previously as well. At the Mexican Spelling Bee Challenge, Charles and I are on the sit out bench. And I was kind of speaking to him about, again, the potential of working with him. And I basically said something along the lines of, tell me if you guys have any idols or advantages that I need to know about. And I think he took it the wrong way and he thought that I was just fishing for information and not going to give anything back. So he immediately went on the defense and started interrogating me like a badass lawyer he is. And I
Oh,
was so startled and like overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, if this guy who's strategic and logic, who I ideally would want to work with, if he doesn't want to work with me, well, then he actually becomes my number one threat and he needs to go. So that coupled with him going at it at tribal council, I was like,
mhm,
Ferris, Charles needs to go. So yeah.
mhm. So cool. So cool. Well, I mean, hated it for Charles, but loved it for the moment. Loved it for you and Ferris. I thought it was absolutely incredible.
Oh,
Highlight of the
thank you.
season so far.
I feel for Charles. I love the guy. I've caught up with him many times in Melbourne and we've talked about it. We're good. We're good.
That's good. Yeah, I love to hear that. Well, one thing I'm curious about too, and this backing track just a few episodes with the vote to take out Eden at Tribal Council. Now, with so much kind of history and bad blood among the rebels, you have kind of the two main alliances not working together. What ultimately made the two alliances come together and go rebel strong? Kind of what you were hoping for all the post merge.
Yeah, finally Kirby
Yeah,
said it. Rebel Strong. I was like, there's
exactly.
been so many days.
Yeah, so what got you all together to take out Eden?
Well, you know what? So in the scramble, Kirby and Ferris had an inkling that something was up. And it was actually me who was like, no, I actually think we're good. I hadn't seen any suspicious activity myself. So when we got to that tribal council, Ferris had asked me, Eileen, I still have a feeling about this. Can you observe everyone and see how you feel after this? And so it took me a while. I think it was like at least maybe 10 minutes of me doing the meerkat thing, looking at everyone. And Eden and Mark, who had previously, we formed some sort of bond at Merge because we were super fans and understood the game. They weren't making eye contact with me. Kitty and Caroline were like quiet mice, not saying anything. And I was like, okay, Ferris, I'm ready to switch the vote. And then it went from there. And then it was tough because we didn't know. I was honestly the most worried about Alex, about him not being convinced that this is the way we should go. Kirby, I looked at her and we spoke, and I could tell she was on board and she had Rihanna. So it was Alex, and it was me being like, Alex, please, please just go with us and don't stuff this up. Even in the revote, I was like, Alex, please don't turn and switch the vote. So luckily, I think, look, it was very tricky and fragile, but we managed to pull it off. And I'm devastated. I'm a super fan, right? So I'm devastated to see Eden go, especially before
Mhm.
jury.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to merge at 14, but not have a jury until is it 11, right? I mean,
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm curious too, after that tribal council, what kind of conversations were happening with the rebels of do we stay together and take out the rest of the Titans, or was, already some infighting when you came back?
I didn't think there was any infighting because I was
Mm.
blindsided by
Oh, well,
my
that's fair.
exit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew, and Ferris had told us that he wanted to get closer with Kirby. Ferris did tell Raymond and I everything. Even when he came up with that fake alliance with Kitty, Caroline, and himself, he came straight to Raymond and I and told us that he's created this thing and we should just go along with it, which was fine. So I didn't really suspect that Kirby would pull that move so early. But the thing is, had Mark gone home, I was going to pitch to everyone that Kirby would be next. So good on her for attacking first, because
Mhm.
I knew that I had to take someone like Kirby out in order to have another valid move on my resume.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I'm curious too with that challenge, the immunity challenge. You were so close from what we saw, stacking the blocks. Do you feel like kind of something in you told you I need to win this, or talk us through that challenge?
That's the thing. If something in me told me that I needed to win it because I was about to go home, I think maybe my brain would have put in just that little bit more of focus to make to take the win. But at that
Mhm.
time, I was comfortable and I was like, I think it had been 30 minutes and I was very early on, like about to win. And I was like, wow, I'm actually really good at this. And I was chill and I was calm. And unfortunately, my blocks fell. And had someone told me you're at risk of going home, oh my god, it would have been those last few challenges again where I thought I was going home and then pulled off the win. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, whew, gosh, yeah, I was pulling for you. I was hoping for it so much. Oh, and that stack fell off. It was just heartbreaking. So,
Yeah.
um, one other question I have for you. I'm curious to hear what was your path to the end? Let's say you were able to take out Mark in last night's episode. What was your ideal path to get to the end, and then maybe an ideal final three?
Yeah, good question. So my ideal path to the end was definitely take a couple of shields as far as I could in the game. So that would have been Kirby and Ferris, especially since they were both sort of like working with each other um at that time. But my plan was to take out Kirby because she was too big of a threat. And then after that, Ferris and I would still be loyal. And at one point, I unfortunately would have to cut him because you can't really have two people who play a very similar game at the end, especially since Ferris was perceived as the leader. I knew a lot of
Mhm,
people didn't think I was a goat, but it was more like how do we verse each other? And my potential final three could have been, maybe I take Raymond, maybe I take
mhm,
Ree. Because Ree at
mhm,
that point, she was a challenge beast, but I wouldn't be able to credit some of the strategy that happened there and then. So
mhm.
maybe that would be a final three.
Yeah. And from what we've seen, my perspective only, I think you would win. I would vote for you to win in that final three. So
Me too.
so great. Eileen, I just admire so much of your mindset. I mean, the positivity when you were blindsided. That was very impressive to see, as well as your mind for the game. I think you've seen on social media, we had a preseason fantasy draft on our podcast along with Simon Me.
I
And you
know.
were the last
The
remaining
final
member.
one.
The last member. And so he could not be in this interview today, unfortunately, but he passed along a message to me that he wants me to read out to you. So
Sure.
here's Simon's message to you, the last member of Team Simon. He says, I'm so proud of the way you were able to keep fighting from the bottom, never giving up, always looking for a way off the bottom. You had some fantastic reads throughout the game, and it was impressive that you lasted so long out there, and a proven challenge beast. Sucks to see you go home, especially after narrowly missing an immunity win at that damn quarry. I hope we see you back. So
Oh,
that
Simon,
is
I hope
Simon.
we thank you for your kind words. I hope we see me back too. And
I hope
and
so too.
yeah, and I mean I'm following the legacy that Simon created where he won that immunity challenge during the tribal twist last year. So I am
Mhm.
honored to be the next person in that lineup.
So good, so good. Well, Eileen, it was fantastic talking today. Really appreciate it.
So much. Thank you for opening a compassionate space for us to talk on your podcast. Thank you, Alex.
No problem. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.